Hi guys, it's Molly. Welcome or welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. So in today's video, I'm going to be going through the books I read in February and March because I didn't do any videos for a month. So I need to update you guys on that. I'm going to be giving you my thoughts and ratings as well as a few stats for the month. And then I'm also going to be going through my April TBR. And unfortunately, I didn't read as much as I wanted to. So a lot of my February and March TBR has been shifted into April. So April's a very ambitious month. But anyway, overall in February, I read 7 books and that ended up amounting to 1,645 pages, so not too shabby in the pages department. My average rating was 4.29 stars, so pretty good books. And the genres I read were manga, biography, contemporary and short story, with manga taking up the majority. So the first book I read in February was Down the Drain by Julia Fox, that I had actually started in January, and I talked about it in my January wrap-up video. But yeah, this was a book that was like full of twists and it didn't really stay idle for long. You know, it wasn't stagnant, it kept moving, it was dynamic, and it touches on a lot of dark and troubling topics that were very eye-opening, and you just sort of learn how much she's actually gone through. And it was very interesting, so I gave it 4 stars. The next few books I read were the first 3 volumes in Kaiju number 8 by Naoya Matsumoto. So this is a series of sci-fi manga where monsters are a reality and they call them kaiju, and there's actually a defense force in place to fight them. The main character is called Kafka, and he's a man in his 30s who dreamed of being in the defense force but unfortunately was never able to do it. So he works sort of in the cleanup crew where they clean up the dead kaijus after the defense force is finished with them. But he actually ends up getting a chance to join the defense force because they up the age limit because they're not getting as many recruits and they need more people, and he somehow ends up becoming a kaiju, able to switch back and forth between human and kaiju. The plot is really interesting, and I really appreciated that it's not like a 17-year-old main character, it's actually like a grown man. And the characters themselves have like clear dimensions and motives that may not be clear at first, but like as you get to know them and learn more about them, then it's much more understandable. But yeah, at least in my experience, it's not your typical like OP main character, because he's not OP when he's human, only when he turns into a kaiju. But then that in itself has problems, obviously, because the defense force he's part of is hunting kaiju. But yeah, I really enjoyed the first 3 volumes and I gave them all 5 stars. Then I read By Any Other Name by Jodi Picoult, and let me just say, this was the first book of 2025 to make me cry. This is a dual POV between a female playwright in modern day Manhattan and a female poet and playwright in Elizabethan England. This is a book that explores the role of women in theatre, specifically through writing, and that despite the differences between society in the Elizabethan era and modern day, there are still some glaring similarities of women getting overlooked. And it also touches on sort of like the rumoured authorship of Shakespeare, how he may not have actually written all of his plays or poems, and that he's actually a front for writers that didn't want their name to be published or something, like either they were women or maybe they just didn't want to be known, they wanted to be anonymous, but they knew that having Shakespeare's name would help the play or poem sell. It also touches on being a Jew in Elizabethan England and how much they have to hide and how much they have to sort of pretend and put on a mask, and just that even their really close friends hate Jews and they can never really truly be themselves with anyone. Yeah, so the character of Amelia really goes through it in this book. I really enjoyed the juxtaposition of the powerlessness of these 2 similar women centuries apart, and that despite these similarities there are still some differences in how they are treated and how they present themselves. And it's really just a book about wanting to be heard and remembered, and I gave it 4 stars. Next, I read Mrs. Fox by Sarah Hall, and I'm not entirely sure I understood it. So this was one of those Faber and Faber short story books, like really small and like 30 odd pages. And it's a book about what happens to the relationship dynamics between a man and a woman when the confident woman becomes a fox and she inevitably leaves the man behind because she's a fox, he's human. I'm unsure if it's supposed to be a metaphor or if it's like speculative kind of fantastical fiction. Yeah, I'm still kind of unsure about that, but I did love the writing style. I'm just not sure I fully understood it, so I gave it 3 stars. And then the last book I read in February was Chlorine by Jade Song. This is primarily a book about obsession. It's about a girl obsessed with mermaids and water to a very unhealthy amount, you might say, but she derives a lot of her self-confidence and strength from it. So she joins the swim team, and how well she does in these swim meets determines how self-confident she is, like how she performs in the water is directly tied to it. So it's sort of a sports book, but it's not really about the sport. Like she only joins the swim team just to be in water all the time, you know. It's not really about swimming for her, it's about water. So like you could say the sports is an enabler, it's a means to an end, and all these people pushing her in the sports are also inadvertently enablers. In some parts it can be quite graphic, especially near the end. If you know, you know. And it's very blunt in the experiences of women, which I think is really, really cool. Like, you don't really see a lot of that, at least from the books I read, but I mostly read fantasy. But yeah, I appreciated this book just being straight up like, this is what happens to women all the time. Like, yeah, this is what we have to deal with. It's also almost kind of like a stream of consciousness writing, but like in the past, like she's reflecting on how she came to this end point to being a mermaid, and these occasional different singular point of view in the form of letters, and that just sort of makes your mind wonder like what's happened, because the letters are sort of in the present, whereas the rest of the story is like past tense, so it's sort of like what's happened, what are these letters referring to? But yeah, it definitely shocked me at parts. I think anyone reading that could say that, but I really enjoyed the descriptions, and the way the feelings were written was really expertly done. Like, you understood the mentality of this girl, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. So now that we're done with my February wrap up, we're going to be going on to my March wrap up. So for March I read 4 books, and that amounted to 1,450 pages, which is a lot actually for 4 books, and a nice round number. My average rating was 4.75 stars. So a lot of good books, quality over quantity for March. And the genres I read were fantasy. Just fantasy. But yeah, I think there was at least one YA fantasy, short story fantasy, an adult fantasy, and then either a YA or a new adult fantasy. I don't know what you'd refer it to. But yeah, all fantasy. The first book I read in March was Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett, and unfortunately I do not have it with me because I got it from the library. I think this was a really great end to the Emily Wilde series, and I just loved the more thorough exploration of the fairy realms, because we only really got snippets in the previous 2 books. We got like little tasters, but this one, it's like the entire book is in the fairy realm, or at least one of them. And Wendell is such a golden retriever in this book. Like, he really respects and understands Emily so much. Like there's parts in the book where he wants to do something for Emily, but then he's like, no, she'll hate that, I won't do it because I don't want to make her unhappy. And I really love it. They're literally like golden retriever black cat energy, yet Wendell has a black cat and Emily has not a golden retriever, but golden retriever energy dog in the form of Shadow. So it was just really interesting, their dynamics. And I really appreciated the slow development of Emily throughout the series. It's a bit more in this book because of all the stuff that happens, but I really appreciated that development while also like keeping her true to herself and her core values. Like, she really is a scholar at heart. There's like all this stuff happening to her, and she's just like, this would make a really great paper. Women in STEM. I really love that part of her personality. Like, she knows she should be feeling a certain way, but she's like, well, all I can think about is writing a paper, and that this would be a really interesting research topic. But yeah, I love that for Emily. And guys, I really thought they were gone for good. I'm really trying not to spoil anything here, but I really thought they were gone for good, and it made me tear up. But yeah, a really enjoyable book, and I think it rounded out the series really well, and I gave it 5 stars. Then I read Fairy Tales by Marianne, another library book and another Faber short story as well. So this Faber story actually has 3 short stories in it. It reimagines Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty and Puss in the Boots in Marianne Moore's perspective. She keeps the darker elements of the original stories intact whilst being hopeful and adding more ogres. There's ogres in 2 of the stories. But yeah, I really like them. I appreciate a short story that feels like a complete plot, and these definitely did. And I loved her take on these classic tales. Like, she added something fresh, I think. And I gave it 4 stars. Next I read Swordcatcher by Cassandra, Clare, and guys, let me tell you, this is my new Roman Empire book. And I really can't wait to get the second book. I'm gonna wait for the paperback to come out. Hopefully it's this year, sooner rather than later. But yeah, I cannot wait to read the sequel because it's set up really well. Like I just want to know what's gonna happen. What are the consequences to all of these things that have happened at the end of this book? But yeah, Cassandra is really in her element with adult fantasy, I think. And this book shows that she can write really amazing plots, characters, and world building outside of the Shadowhunter universe, because that's really all I know her for, the Shadowhunter books. But yeah, I really hope she does more projects outside of that, because she's amazing. But I also ship everyone and with everyone in this book. Like, I have so many different pairings that I like, and it's just like a mishmash of everyone. It's sort of one of those books where the endgame couples aren't planned, or they're not really obvious yet. There's a couple where I'm like, okay, maybe she's gonna go for them, but it's like, it could go anywhere. And so obviously I gave this book 5 stars. Cassandra Clare cooked. Okay, then lastly in March I read The Dream Thieves by Maggie stiefvater. This is the sequel to The Raven Boys that I read in January, and again this is a reread, but I only read it once, so it was really nice to rediscover elements of the story that I'd forgotten. And I love Ronan. This book really focuses on him a lot more than the previous book. Like, you get more of his backstory and a bit more about his character than you do in the first one. He's not so one-dimensional anymore. I need to protect Adam and Noah. They are my babies. Like, they're the ones that have gone through so much suffering and they just do not deserve it. Okay, they're my boys. A ghost and a magician, they're my boys. And Blue and Gansey are just kind of divas in this book, and I love it. I also love picking up on some throwaway lines that reveal more about the characters, their feelings, their thoughts, and their values that I never picked up on when I first read it when I was like 13. So yeah, it was really interesting to read those lines and be like, oh my god, why did I never pick up on this before? It's so obvious. And yeah, I gave it 5 stars again. So yeah, that was my March wrap up, and now we're going to be going on to the April TBR, which is very ambitious. It's more books than February and March combined. So we'll see how I do. First up we have My Husband by Ventura. This is part of my Weird Books for Weird Girls book club on Instagram. It seems to be about a woman who's very obsessed and dependent on her husband, and like what does she do when she suspects something's amiss. Definitely promises to be a bit weird, and it's actually classed as a thriller, so I'm really intrigued by that. Then we have The Waves by Virginia Woolf. I've only read The Room of One's Own by her and I really liked it. It did take me a while to get into this sort of stream of consciousness way of her writing, but I really liked what she had to say in that, and I already had this book, so I thought, why not give it a go. It's about these 6 characters and their friendship together, and also with a boy called Percival, and what happens to them from childhood to adulthood and how they deal with Percival's death. So I think it actually be really interesting, and it also delves into their lives after that death as well, when they're a lot older. But yeah, I've been meaning to get back into my classics, so starting with this one. Then we have The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman. This is the sequel to the Thursday Murder Club, which I really enjoyed. I've never really been a big murder mystery fan in books, but last year I got really into them. And I really enjoyed this one. It's very cozy, and I just love the idea of old people solving mysteries in a quiet town. And I'm excited for the movie. I'm really excited for the movie. I think I read the first book in 2023, so yeah, I really need to get back into it. Then we've got Blue Lily Lily Blue by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the 3rd book in the series of the Raven Cycle. I can't really remember exactly what this book is about because it's been so long since I read it, but yeah, I'm really excited to reread it and discover parts of the book that I'd previously missed or just forgotten, and I can't wait to dive back in with my babies. Next we have Masters of Death by Olivie Blake. I believe this is a vampire book, and if you know me, you know I love vampire books and vampire movies. I've read Olivie Blake previously. I read The Atlas 6 and I really enjoyed her writing style and her ideas and her perspective, so I really want to give this vampire book a go, and it seems really interesting. There's a vampire estate agent as the main character, and they're selling a haunted house. So I think it's going to make for some really cool moments, so yeah, I'm excited for that. Next we have The Guinevere Deception by Kiersten. I've read her before. I read Lucy Undying at the end of last year, and I really enjoyed that. I loved her take on what happens to Lucy Westenros after the events of Dracula, and I'm really excited to see her reimagining of the legend of King Arthur. I think what she's going for is that Guinevere is a changeling and she's tasked with protecting Arthur from all sorts of enemies, and Merlin's actually the one who recruits her for it. And I think Kiersten White is like known for her reimaginings. I know she did one about Ivan the Terrible, I think, and she reimagined that, and I think she's done a Frankenstein one. But yeah, I really liked her reimagining of Lucy Westenros, so I'm intrigued by this one because I love Arthurian legend. Next we have Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. This is another reimagining of Macbeth's wife. Other than that, I have no idea what the book's about, but I really enjoyed A Study in Drowning, so I'm really hoping I enjoy this as well. And I got the Waterstones exclusive edition with the sprayed edges and all, so I think it'll be a fun ride going to a book practically blind. Jesus, there's literally so many books in this TBR. Then we have The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the final book in the Raven Cycle series, and I do remember more of this than I do Blue Lily Lily Blue, but again, not very much. So again, excited to rediscover it, and I know that this is the book where all the couples happen. So excited for that. And yeah, I hope I love both of them as much as I remember. Then we have Foster by Clare Keegan. Clare Keegan is one of my new favourite authors. I've read So Late in the Day and Small Things Like These, and I enjoyed them immensely. And I still need to see the Small Things Like These movie with Cillian Murphy. But yeah, I love the fact that she's just a short story writer. She's like, yeah, I've got this big thing to say, but I'm going to use very little words to say it. And I respect that. And this is another book that I don't really know anything about. All I know is that it takes place in Ireland, as most of her books do. But as I've already loved 2 of her books before, I'm expecting to love this as well. Then we have The Bullet That Missed by Richard Osman. This is the 3rd book in the Thursday Murder Club series. And again, another book I know nothing about, other than the fact that it's in that series. So I have like a vague idea. I'm guessing it's going to be the same 4 characters trying to solve a murder. Obviously it's going to be in a different way though, otherwise it wouldn't be very interesting. But yeah, this year is the year of getting through series, as you can probably tell, because I started a lot last year but I finished none, so I really want to finish a few this year, and I'm hoping Thursday Murder Club will be one, but he's announced a 5th book, so Won't be finishing that anytime soon, but I'll at least catch up. Next we have Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. This is one I've been meaning to read for a while. It's been on my shelf for a while, but I've never gotten around to it, so I'm going to now. So it's set in New York and it's about a woman who sort of falls in love with an older man 20 years her senior. They rush into an impulsive marriage, mainly because Cleo needs security and a green card, whereas he sort of like actually kind of falls in love with her. So I think it's going to be full of drama and tension. I'm trying to get a bit more into sort of like literary and contemporary fiction, because as you can probably tell, I mostly read fantasy, whether that be in manga, short story or novel form. And even like the horror or historical fiction I read has fantasy elements to it. So I'm trying to sort of get into like literary contemporary books, sort of weird fiction and murder mysteries that don't have fantasy elements to them, and some historical fiction that also doesn't have fantasy elements to it. I don't think I'm succeeding because the majority of my books are fantasy, but I love fantasy and I am reading a few books outside of my comfort zones, so I'm not too bothered. Right, next we have Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Again, another one I've meant to read for a while. I've heard about this like so many times on Instagram or YouTube, and from my understanding it's inspired by Alice in Wonderland, and if you know me, you know I love any like media, literature, art kind of things inspired by Alice in Wonderland. So if you have any recommendations, let me know. I know there's one coming out called House of Hearts that I really want to check out. The only thing I have to go off that it's inspired by Alice in Wonderland is that there's a character called the Prince of Hearts. But yeah, it's sort of one of those like fake dating maybe kind of book. They get together to help each other out with their individual goals, but then end up falling in love? I don't know. Probably. But yeah, another one I'm excited to get into. Then we have Saltblood by Francesca de Torres. This is one I saw in the Waterstones Coming Soon section of their website, and I was just really intrigued by the cover. So then I read the blurb and I was really intrigued by the blurb. So it's about a woman who all her life pretends to be a man, and just sort of the journey through her life until she becomes a pirate. And I just thought that was just so intriguing. Like, I've never really read anything like that before. And I got the Waterstones exclusive edition, so we got the sprayed edges, guys, and they're gorgeous. But yeah, I've been wanting to get into pirate fiction more recently, on top of the Arthurian legend fiction that I also want to get into. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, it's a sign. This came at like the perfect time for me, and I bought it. So yeah, I'm really excited to read this book and start my journey into pirate fiction. And last but not least, I'm going to be reading Cool as the Light by Sophie Clark. I think I've talked about this book before, but I actually read an arc of it at the end of last year on NetGalley. I can't really remember a lot about the book right now because I've read so much since then, but I remember really enjoying it, so I want to get myself a physical copy and reread it. But yeah, I feel like I just absorb books better when they're physical compared to if it's like an ebook. So yeah, another reread, and I'll be interested to know if I feel the same as I did when I initially read it. And there we go, my February and March wrap-ups and my April TBR all laid out for you. I'm really hoping that April will be a better reading month for me, and I think it will be because I've been feeling a lot more motivated to read recently. I'm not as much in a slump as I was in the past couple of months, so I do think I can get through the majority of this TBR, and then it'll probably only be a couple books maybe get shafted to another month. But yeah, I'm really hopeful, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening to my thoughts on my wrap-ups and my plans for April. And please give me any thoughts on the books I've talked about. I'd really love to know what you think. And if you made it this far, then please comment the sword, a sword for all the fantasy I've read and will read. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you soon. Sweet dreams.